So Danny from Novation, how's it going?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good.
We met back at the Novation SL Mark III. Had a great conversation about control and CV and product ideas, but the Summit is really kind of your baby.
Yeah, it's my first design, so yeah, really excited. I've worked for Novation for over 4 years now. I was initially a QA engineer, and I was a QA engineer for the Peak project, so I kind of got to know that synth inside and out. Yeah. So to move on and design this one is a real pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, what was the intention then? You were involved with Peak. I mean, I said to Chris, this is kind of more than 2 peaks. What was the initial idea? What was the seed to make a bigger, more voice, 16 voice synth?
I think a lot of it was like to make an instrument that you can play. Like Peak is great as a desktop module. It fits in like loads of different setups, but to actually have something that you can interact with and like make an instrument really. And then yeah, making it 16 voices and giving it the bitonal is like, Peak's great, but what if you did have to? And then the rest of it was adding like, well, what controls can we pull out? We've got all this space now because with the 61 key makes like, what do I really enjoy about Peak? But it's a bit hidden. So stuff like the FM. And even like, there's just like small little things like having the voice menu on the front. So if you want to quickly go to a mono patch, you don't have to dive into a menu. You just don't lose that kind of workflow.
Tash of Novation, Mr. Chris Calc, how are you?
I'm great, cheers Ben, how are you?
Great. It was a pleasure. I had the pleasure of seeing this a few days ago just to kind of piece together the launch as it were for people. We saw this on Wednesday, we've got lots of great sounds from the synth, we're going to kind of chop into the video. Excellent. So people can expect some nice little musical nuggets. Cool. Super easy, it just oozes out of this thing. So we've also got Nick from Novation. How's it going?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. And you work alongside Chris Huggett, who's involved with these synths. And just to start with, for people that maybe don't know the name, can you maybe speak to Chris's background? So I think this is a real key part of kind of Novation's synth history.
Absolutely, well, and part of synth history in general, really. I mean, Chris's involvement with synths dates back to the EDP Wasp. And from then he went on to do the OSCar. He's done lots of design work for Akai, and for the last basically 20 years or so, he's been our chief synth consultant. He's been responsible for some of our digital synths like the Supernova series, and more recently the base station, and getting the analog side of things up and running. Up to date with Peak and Summit, where we've got the best of both worlds, the hybrid design of the digital electronics with the analog filters.
But for those that haven't seen Summit, the people I've been seeing around the show have said it's more than 2 peaks.
Yeah, I tend to agree, to be perfectly honest.
It has its heritage there, and that makes something cool. Peak, which I think's got a great reputation.
Yeah.
But then it is more than.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the easiest kind of concept for it is to think of it like the 2 peaks, but you're quite right, that's more than the sum of its parts, because You know, we've kind of added a few extra bits here and there. We've kind of brought out a lot of the top panel controls because we've got the real estate to do so. Of course, you know, it's based around a really great feeling keyboard as well. So, you know, it's more of a performance kind of instrument, I'd say.
So it'd be nice to just overview the instrument.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure thing.
kind of block by block, as it were.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, I suppose one thing we can start off with is the oscillators. As I say, you know, it's the Peak engine inside here. But the thing with the oscillators is, I think it's quite an interesting story because, you know, when we announced the Peak, we did a lot of really quite interesting research and work on using field programmable gate arrays, the FPGAs, but kind of treating them in such a way as we're not really concerned with getting kind of as much amount out of them as possible.
No, reaching like 90% of the processing power, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. What we really want to do is, well, of course we want to get as much out of them as we can, but what we really want to do is concentrate on the quality of it, as opposed to sort of the quantity of it.
The largest amount of wavetables, and I'd agree that it's much nicer to just have well, there's more than a handful, but a great selection of things than we've got 500 waveforms.
Well, exactly. Although, you know, there are a lot of waveforms on it. I mean, you've got your usual suspects, the analog stuff, but also into the wavetable stuff. There are 70 wavetables in there as well. So, you know, that's a lot to get going with before you even need to go anywhere near the kind of the filter side of things. But, you know, it's kind of the sort of the old analog digital sort of argument and stuff. But really, the technology inside here, I think, is really, really inventive because, you know, rather than just kind of using a processor, DSP processor and a DAC there to get that out into kind of our ears, as it were, we're able to kind of get the waveforms drawn. There are NCOs in here, but they're being generated at 24 megahertz. So, you know, instead of your 96 kilohertz kind of sample rates, we're running at, you know, 24 million times a second to create a triangle wave, which is pretty good going, really.
Yeah, so just like Peak does, there is a real lush analogness, but also, and I mean this in a great way, a very digitalness to some of the wavetables when you want it, and I love that.
Yeah, I think I'm really pleased you said that, Ben, because analog, there's analog polys out there. There's lots of analog polys out there, and yeah, this can do that sort of thing. You know, we've got, as I say, we've got the usual suspects in terms of the building blocks, waveforms wise. But, you know, we're entering into a period now where there's so many there's so many options for this sort of thing. We've got to really kind of we want to stand out. We want to be able to do new and interesting things. And, you know, we're not scared to say that this is, you know, these are digital oscillators, but they're not digital in the kind of the, you know, in the negative sense of the word. Not that there is a negative sense of the word in my opinion.
That would have been thrown around years ago. It sounds a bit digital.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. When someone comes up, this like digital toppy bell-like pad and I love that.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's all there for the taking. And so, you know, just by leveraging this technology, we can do that sort of stuff. But then into the analog filter. Now, there is a change in this filter. It's the same filter, but there's a bit of a change in the way that we kind of manage it and look after it. So, you know, again, you've got your usual suspects here. You've got your low pass, band pass, high pass. But if I just tap down to where it says more, there, what we're doing is we're basically splitting, because there's two 12 dB filters in there, which are summing for the 24, for the 24 dB roll-off. So what we're doing here, and this is a great trick that Chris Huggett, who's the lead designer on this, he did this originally on the OSCar. Basically, you put the filter separation in there, and that separates the two 12 dB blocks and pushes them apart. And you can actually offset that. If you go over to the menu, you can see that we've got this little offset here, and the filter separation here is just really pushing the cutoff positions apart from each other.
Yeah, and we've heard like dual peak bandpass formant things out of this, kind of dual resonance low pass kind of bass stuff.
Well, that's it. I mean, you know, as I say, you've got low pass, band pass, high pass, 12 and 24 dB roll-offs, but actually on the more side of things, although I think that label may change on the final product, but on the more side of things, you've got an extra 9 kind of configurations of filters, so kind of EQ stuff, bandpass stuff with, you know, widening bells and that sort of stuff, but also we can go in parallel, get the 2 resonant peaks, and then you can get really kind of nice and formanty with that as well.
filter section as well is where we start to see these kind of analog saturation stages as well.
Absolutely. There are 3 really nice distortion stages in there as well. So we've got kind of the overdrive, which is pre-filter. So that's hotting up the oscillators going into the filter.
Filter burn, as our friend Mr. Back would say.
That's a brilliant term. I think I'll use that one.
Filter burn,
filter burn, I like it. So, so we've got the filter burners there. And then after that, we've got the post-filter burners. So, actually,
afterburn.
The afterburn, of course, well, it's got to be. Well, actually, we've got 2 stages of afterburn. We've got the big burn at the end. But basically, yeah, we've got the one going into the filter. We've got a distortion after the filter. That's accessed from the voice menu. And if I just patch over here, you'll see there's post-drive up at the top here. And again, that's that's all pure analog. It's just we access that from the menu, and then finally we've got a post VCA distortion, and that's really the big ballsy one. That's that can kind of tear your head off.
That was the one that I think I shocked the room on Wednesday with when I cranked it.
Yeah, indeed. No, there's a lot of distortion in there, and that really just helps get. Well, you can get really, really super gnarly with it. You can go super clean. You can get really nice. Beautiful bell signs and all that sort of stuff. But if you want, you can just go really filthy with the thing as well.
Some other effects as well on the output section.
So at the end here, you're going back into the digital world. We're going into the time-based effects, so chorus, delay, reverbs as well. One thing I will say, and I've said this many times before, but the reverb on this I think is just absolutely brilliant. I put this alongside some of the top class reverbs available, in rack and pedal form available today. I think it's really nice. But also, that's really neat for the Summit because we've actually added a stereo input into this as well.
Yeah.
And so the stereo input can hit the effects here in stereo, true stereo, and keep in that stereo world. And that would be post-filter. But if we wanted, we could put it in before the filter. At that point, it gets some to mono because it's running through the filters. But but then it comes in at the voice level, and then you've got all that wonderful filtering there, and all the distortion,
all the modulation as well.
And that's it. And of course, it's not just it's not just a cut-off point. There's tons and tons and tons of modulation on here. I mean, even just normal. Oh, sorry about the camera shake there. But even just normal, we've got oscillator 3 going into the filter here. So if you're an ARP 2600 fan, which plainly I am, we've got that kind of crazy ass oscillator filter modulation just directly on the top panel. But of course, if you wanted to get deep, you can go into the modulation matrix, and in real terms, it does become a bit of a modular synth at that point. It's just we don't use patch cables, we're just making virtual connections inside. And
some of that matrix is broken out. I mean, compared to Peak, we've got all the FM now on knobs on top of them.
Yeah, that I think is, from a sound design point of view, has really brought this out a lot, because when you're doing FM on the Peak, it's there and it's brilliant, but you've got to make a concerted effort to go to the modulation matrix to dial the FM in.
When there's a knob, even if you turn it back down, you turn it up. But I think you just want, people will just turn it because it's there.
Yeah, well,
and it encourages it.
Yeah, I mean, it's those happy accidents. I mean, everybody does it. I'm guilty of it all the time, just picking a random knob and saying, oh, what will this do to it? And the FM there, just being there immediately, it just gives a much more immediacy to the way you're designing the patches.
We've got FM, ring mod, the audio rate, VCO3 to the filter, the 3 stages of distortion. It's not just a polysynth in any kind of analog or digital sense, in my mind.
There's a lot of stuff going on there. I mean, you can make self-generative patches on this, no problem. It's just, you just kind of folding all the modulation back in on itself. For example, with the envelopes, we've exposed the loop switch there now as well. So of course you send a sample and hold to the decay there, and you just go on forever with that, and it's just kind of building itself up. You can get Krell patches out of this thing basically. Well, or near enough, But it's just sounding lovely, and of course all of that, but in this synthesizer it's ×2.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, of course.
So I mean basically. That's the synth engine. It's 16 voices if you're in the single patch kind of architecture. If you move into the multi, then we split it into 2 8-voice synths. Those 2 8 voices can be layered. You can use a keyboard split to play them separately, of course, or you can switch into the dual mode, and if you're a sequencer guy, just fire in sequences on separate MIDI channels, and you've got 2 8-voice beastly polysynths in front of your sequencer then as well. So, it's got a lot going for it, I think.
Oh yeah. Well, that was as soon as it kind of held a chord down on that first day, it was like, all right, wow, yeah, there's something going on.
There is something special, and we're working hard on the patch design stuff. We've got a lot of really great patches in from a lot of different places at the moment. I think there's more to come through as well, and especially when you start to hear some of the really well designed multis and the layers, you start to think, oh yeah, now this can do a lot of great things. It really can. So yeah, I mean that's the summit really, kind of in a bit of a whistle stop tour. It's really exciting to have this, really, and I'm absolutely loving playing with it.
Typical kind of questions for a show, I guess, but how far off is it roughly? What kind of price are we aiming at?
Yeah, good point. This is actually scheduled for September. It's interesting. I will say, perhaps I shouldn't, but I will. All the units that we've got here are first engineering samples, literally prototypes. But we're really happy with how it's shaping up, There's a bit to do on the firmware, but September is going to be when we're going to see these in store. So we've got plenty of time to get lots and lots of things sorted out. Not that there's that many errors on there at all at the moment, but, and looking at various different things that we can actually add to that engine as well. So, as a first look, and, as a first example, first engineering sample, well, I've played a gig with this already, so, I'm happy enough with it to be in the stage to gig with, even as it is. So, so price-wise as well, it's going to be £2,200. So, it's on the, let's say, the upper tier of the Novation product range, but, this is a really serious synth. And I think,
I think that's immediately obvious.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so that's it. Yeah, Summit.
Thank you very much.
Nice one, Ben. Cheers.